Hey there. I wanted to do a video on step 2. And just like I did for step 1, I'll start with just copying the text of step 2 over, and then I'll kind of get started. So just to give you background, this data was from a midterm reflection, and this is an interesting way to take something which is essentially qualitative, a feeling, do you agree or disagree with the statement, and then try to turn it into some numeric data. So I'm actually going to show a couple of graphs just to give you some options and ideas. And part of your work here is to create a survey to gather data. Don't linger for too long on that. I've got some ideas about how you can do it. You can make a Google form and share it on social media. You could, some social media like Instagram have built-in polling things that you could do. So I can help you sharing it. I'm only got 18 students here. You're not conducting a groundbreaking study. You're trying to demonstrate your ability to gather information and process it and talk about what it is. Pick some versions, some graphical representations of how you might share that information. So, what question did I seek to answer? There were 2 questions here. I'm going to approach this in the same way I did the last one, which is I'm going to kind of do some notes and then I'll put it back together into a paragraph. I wanted to find out if students could see how math was connected to their lives. And also I was interested in finding out if they felt comfortable asking for help. They're 2 kind of separate things, but I am going to do a correlation graph to kind of see whether there's any potential connection between those things. Who did you intend to study? I'm going to go big here and say I'm interested in the undergraduate students at NLU. How did I sample? I asked my lab classes, because I think I had 2 of them, to fill out a survey as part of an assignment. Do you think the sample is representative of the large population? Now, this is a tricky question. The word that's important here is the representative part. I think in part the sample is representative because they are all NLU students. On the other hand, they are from a particular year because 101 students tend to take their 101 class as sophomores. And this is midway through the term, so there is some self-selection in terms of who actually took the survey. Beyond that, I don't know for sure about the representation match, as I would need more info about the larger demographics of the undergraduate college. What I mean by that is, let's just take gender. If I have 60% female, 40% male in the undergraduate college, then I would expect my sample to also be 60 to 40. And if it's not, then something's, just kind of randomly not representative about the particular group that I chose. So I don't have a good answer to this question. I'm just showing my I don't have a definitive answer. I have a lot of thoughts about whether it's representative or not. All right, 2 graphs. Here we go. I'm actually going to do 3 graphs based on this. The first one, I'm going to just start with a very simple pie chart, because I think a pie chart could be an easy representation here. This did not work well. Let me try again with this. I may need to do some work first off to process. Yes, I do. Process this into a frequency table. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the data, get over here. Let's just get it organized. I can sort it. And now I can put it into I'm going to put it in order: strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, neutral, somewhat agree, and agree. Oh, strongly agree. So if you ask a question or state something and you're looking for agreement, this is a very typical scale to use. You use the term Likert scale, and you would convert these into numbers. You could do averages that way to find kind of the average number, but we're more interested in a representation of all of the data. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this and move it to the side, and I'm going to do a frequency count here. So with the neutrals, I can see that there's 3 of them. Somewhat agrees, I can see that there are 7 of them. Somewhat disagree, there's only 1 of those. Strongly agree, there are 5 of those. And strongly disagree, there are 2. So now I'm ready to create a pie chart based on my frequency table. I could have done a pivot table probably to do this, but it's such a short data set that I can just sort of organize it myself. And I've got my information here. There's some various choices I could make, like getting the percentages in, I think is somewhat of a nice choice. And of course, don't forget to change your title. This is the percent of students who see math as connected to their lives. So I'm trying to choose a title that's descriptive, that tells me what this chart is about. It's part of what we're working on here. All right. And I'm going to write a paragraph for that. So actually, I'm going to bring this over and I'll answer these 3 questions separately. So why did I choose this graph? A pie chart breaks things into categories and shows percentages. Okay. What do I think it shows? I think that it shows a strong section of the sample agrees, strongly or somewhat. Okay, and then this was a third question. I'm not quite sure how it got disconnected. I'm not sure I can make the larger conclusion about the overall population given what I said about the representative nature of this sample. And I'm not sure how that's going to change for different graphs, but we'll just go forward and see what happens. So now let me make my second graph. I said I was going to do 3. I'm actually going to boil this into 3 categories: disagree, neutral, and agree. And then this would be 3, 3, and 12. And so I might put a note here: somewhat or strongly. And same here, somewhat or strongly. And I'm going to do a different kind of graph here, just a column chart. And again, I need to get information in here. This is agreement with, I see, I don't even remember what the question was now. I see how math is connected to my life. I see how math is connected to my life. And now you do this. Okay, and then don't forget your axis titles. This is agreement level, and this is the number of students. I always prefer something like number of students to frequency, which is very mathy, but not very descriptive. All right, so now I'm going to do this again. New graph, these 3 questions. Okay, why did I choose this graph? Well, I think a bar chart is very easy to understand, and the height of the agreement bar is clearly way higher than the other 2 bars. Oh, I'm getting into this next part here. The large size of the agreement bar shows most of the students do feel like they see the connection. And I think that bar chart really makes that clear. I'm not sure this is going to change. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to do my 3rd graph, which you don't need to do, but I'm doing just for fun. So there's a way to kind of look at correlation. If I have numeric values, I can create a scatter plot and see whether there's any pattern to this relationship. Now I've got to get my axis labels on here. So the X value is math is connected to my life. Math is connected to my life. 1 is strongly disagree, and 5 is strongly agree. And then this axis title, I can use something very similar. Math, I am willing to ask for help. And then I just need to say what this is. This is a correlation graph between seeing connection with math and a willingness to ask for help. So a correlation graph proposes to see whether there's any kind of pattern between the 2 variables. And I'm going to say that there really is not much of a pattern here. It's pretty spread out. For instance, people who said that they, this is 4, they agreed with how math connected to their life across the spectrum from 2 to 5 in terms of, disagreeing that they were willing to ask for help or not. And it's not like the ones not seeing the connection were connected to the 1. There was only this 1 score here on willing to ask for help, and that person was neutral on seeing how math was connected. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose it and what do I see it saying. I think correlation graphs are very interesting as they explore potential connections between different beliefs or quantitative values. And what do I think it shows? I think it shows there is really not much, if any, of a connection between seeing the relationship of math to life and being willing to ask for help. I'm going to try to write something different here because these people are all in math classes. And we've got that potential overrepresentation of sort of people who are more successful or they're sticking it out because we're doing this in the middle of the term. But I'm thinking this probably can be applied to the larger population because the finding seems reasonable. But of course, we still have the same sampling problems we did before. So I just want to give you some different graph options and then try to work through talking about those things. So at this point now, I'm ready to move on to processing this. I may actually, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to condense this into one part. So what I did last time is I copied and pasted. So that was my rough draft. And now I'm going down here and I'm taking out the questions. And one of the things that should happen if you take out the questions is you should still understand the context from what you wrote. If you didn't, then that could mean that the way you're responding to questions is too heavily based on what the question itself said. So I'm interested in the undergraduate students at NOU. I wanted to understand more about how they felt about math class and about asking for help. So I did a convenience sample. You don't have to use technical terms here, but I'm going to since I know what it's called, by just asking the students in my math lab to fill out a midterm survey. 18 people responded, and I collected the data. You can see this data in the sheet. Sheet 2. So again, I'm referencing my Excel file, which I'm going to turn in. So, and then I'm getting into this, and I wrote pretty full sentences. I think that in part of the sample is representative because they're all NU students. On the other hand, saying what's a comma there, probably needs a dash there. So the more work I do when I write the sentences in the beginning, I could have better, ready to just kind of take that wholesale and put it in. And so then now I'm ready to move into the 3 graphs or just pick 2. And so again, I'm going to take out the questions and leave the written responses. I chose a pie chart because this chart, this kind of chart, breaks things into categories and shows percentages. My graph, be careful with it, shows a strong section of the sample agrees, strongly somewhat. You can see this from the blue and yellow sections of the pie. And then I'm not sure I can make the larger conclusion given what I said about the representative nature of the sample. I would say the lack of representation representation of this sample. Same thing here. I can take out the questions, condense these sentences into little paragraphs. So this is moving. Let me just show you kind of the integration now of these things. So if I go back to my sample step 1, the final version was here. So I would say final stats project, Mr. A, June 4th, and then I can say, here's step 1, paste, here's step 2, and then I'm grabbing the work that I've done. What is this? This one. So I brought this into a paragraph here. So here's my paragraph. Here's step 2. Then I get my graph. And then I have my paragraph that explains this. And I need to do one more, and I'm done with step 2. Okay, hope that helps. Big part of doing these complicated projects is just putting all the pieces together. Break it into parts, take some time, make sure you do it with support accessible, so you know how to get in touch with me or one of the specialists for questions that arise.